And my dad gave me the best advice. He said, when you go back this time, why don't you focus on everybody else and see if you can get everybody else through Hell Week, and you'll take the focus off of yourself.
Chad Peterman here, and you are listening to Can't Stop the Growth, a platform for leaders and teams to grow and thrive. We highlight the importance of personal development, pursuing greatness, and always chasing your potential. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome to another episode of Can't Stop the Growth. I'm your host, Chad Peterman, and today I have a very special guest. It's always a special day when we have someone live here in the studio. He just made probably the 30, 40-minute drive up here to Indianapolis from Columbus, Indiana. But really excited to have our guest on here. I had the pleasure of taking him on a tour around kind of our building, and we were chatting about just life and what we're going to talk about and different stuff like that. And I think that he's got a really interesting story and a really interesting kind of background to kind of share leadership lessons, kind of what he's learned through his experiences and how we can utilize that in really whatever it is that we're doing, whether that's our personal life, our professional life, or what have you. So without any further ado, would like to welcome Mr. Dan Newell to the podcast. Welcome to the podcast, Dan.
Hey, thanks for having me, Chad.
Yeah, excited to have you. Obviously, I wish I could let listeners in on kind of our conversations before, but we'll do our best to kind of recreate some of that. But I guess before we get started, maybe give the listeners a little bit of your background.
Sure. I'm the youngest brother of four. I grew up in Columbus, Indiana, and really my three older brothers went to college, and I looked at college and thought I'm just not going to really succeed there. So a friend of mine that wrestled told me about Navy SEALs, and I thought, well, what's that? And he gave me a book to read, and I looked into that, and I was into sports and athletics, and I thought that'd be a really cool way to challenge myself and give back to the country that I love. And so I decided to enlist in the Navy. 1993, went to boot camp, graduated honor man, and got an assignment to go out to SEAL training, and that was the only reason I had joined the Navy. And then I'm cruising through SEAL training. Hell Week comes along, and I had the unthinkable happen. I chose to ring the bell, or DOR, drop on request. It's the first time I'd quit anything in my life, and I was faced with some tough decisions. I was in the Navy, but I wasn't able to do what I was there to do, and so I chose to, the Navy said, we're going to send you to law enforcement school. You're going to be a police officer. So I ended up going there. I didn't tuck my head in the sand. I rose to the occasion. I said, I'm here. I'm going to give it my best. I graduated #1 from law enforcement school, went up to Iceland, was a police officer. Had that monkey on my back that I had quit, and I decided that I wanted to go back one more time and try it. And if I didn't make it that time, I would be okay with it and move on. Got a second opportunity, went to Bud's class 215, graduated #1, and then did a couple of deployments with the SEAL teams, and then ultimately got out, became a cabinet maker for my grandfather's shop, and did that for 23 years. And I just recently sold that, and now I'm becoming a professional pilot. So that's kind of a background.
Yeah, Dan, I
overview.
appreciate you making me feel like my life is pretty inconsequential, and it's just not doing a whole lot. So again, I think first and foremost, thank you for your service. That we're all lucky to have the brave men and women who protect us. You mentioned on our walk around the offices that for a long time you were kind of afraid to kind of acknowledge that failure. I don't know that most would consider that a failure. That seems like one of the toughest things that you may put yourself through. What kind of allowed you to kind of embrace that kind of failure?
I think as I had gotten out of the Navy and was back in Indiana, and then I had opportunities to talk to younger people wanting to get involved in the SEAL teams or what it might like, I had to share my story. I could no longer, I didn't want to be fake, so I needed to tell them that you know me as a SEAL, but you really don't know my journey. And so I actually failed the first time, but didn't let that stop me. So I think It's hard, and I even said it when I talked to a group of people recently for you guys. I said, this is the hardest thing for me to do is to talk about my failures. Because nobody wants to talk about your failures. But even in business or even in SEAL training, you don't want the failure to define you. And that's what I've learned from it. And I was like, I can have a message here with this. If I embrace it and share it, it makes me relatable. And so people can buy in and say, okay, this guy wasn't perfect, but he still made it happen in the end. And I think for me, it gave me to graduate number one the second time I was back was pretty special. And I think that helped me say, look, I didn't make it the first time, but it didn't stop me from coming back and not just making it, but being on top.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of when I bought in, and I thought that's a pretty good message that people can get something out of, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I would think too, there's like a failure that you may have, and then, okay, I'm going to pick myself up and go back. I think maybe the difference is that, Navy SEAL training isn't something that I feel like you're just like, yeah, just let me go back and do that again. That sounded great. What did you learn about like your own mindset, kind of mental fortitude to like, hey, I'm not just going to like, hey, go do this again. Like, this is not going to be the most enjoyable experience of my entire life.
For sure, especially since I'd already been there, so there was no newness to it. I knew exactly what the the Pacific Ocean felt like, and it's a cold one.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter if it's summer or winter. So I knew the feeling of the sand and the wet and the cold. But at the same time, I felt like I matured, and the reason I quit the first time, I had doubts. Like I just signed up, and I was like, I want to do what the SEALs do. I want to challenge myself. But as you enter Hell Week, which is 1 week of continuous training and no sleep, well, you get like 3 hours of sleep. You begin to question why you're there. And I think I had doubts. Do I really want to do what the SEALs do at the end of this training? Or was I here for the wrong reason? And so I had those doubts, and so that's what caused me to crack the first time. So the second time I was a little bit more mature. I was 21 instead of 18. And my dad gave me the best advice. He said, when you go back this time, why don't you focus on everybody else and see if you can get everybody else through Hell Week, and you'll take the focus off of yourself. And so I embraced that. And anytime we knew we were going to get surf tortured, which is where you'd lock arms and walk into the knee-deep water and then lay down, and they have a doctor on the beach, and he basically tells them how much longer they can keep us in there pre-hypothermia and stuff like that. But the worst place to be was on the end. And so I would sprint to the end and find whoever was there. So if it was Chad, I'd say, Chad, I got you. It's Dan. I'm here to take care of you. And I would focus. We were all suffering the same. But I would shift the focus onto them and like, what can I do to help you? I'm going to get you through this. And I don't have anybody on my outside. It's just the cold black ocean. And you just focus your attention on the whole team and everything else. And what can I do to help these guys? And it takes the focus off of you. Even though you're still suffering the same as them, you don't realize it. You shift your focus. And so that was the main thing that I've taken away, and it applies to a lot of areas in life.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. And I think so relatable to leadership in any area. Everyone has their stuff. Everyone has a personal life. Everyone has, failures or just bad circumstances. A family member gets sick, one passes away. Like, we're all dealing with this stuff regardless of your title. And so in leadership, we have to focus on the others and their well-being. Did you feel like with the people that you graduated with, do you feel like the majority of them had kind of maybe didn't take that into it because they didn't get that advice from, their father or someone that they knew, but like, do you feel like that's what the SEALs was trying to teach them is like, hey, how do you focus on everybody else? And if we're all focused on each other, then we can achieve great things?
Yeah, I think so for sure, because one of the messages you get there is team, then your teammate, and then yourself. So that's the hierarchy that you kind of get indoctrinated into. And so it's what can I do for the team? Then you break it down to even smaller. We always had a swim buddy. We were never... In SEAL training, you were never supposed to be caught without a swim buddy. So if you had to go to the bathroom, you had to get somebody to go with you. And so that was just the whole part was put your teammate, and then take care of yourself. So you never were supposed to be caught, taking care of yourself when somebody still was a boat crew was still out there doing something, you're supposed to go out there and help them, take care of that, then take care of your teammates, and then look to yourself.
Okay. That's such a great kind of way to look at it. I guess on that note, when you think about how maybe this is maybe post, you know, training and stuff like that, like how did you guys as a team really work to enforce kind of that accountability piece amongst yourselves?
I mean, I think it was, most of us came to the platoon that way, and to your first SEAL team, your first platoon as a new guy, you have a mix. You have guys that have done multiple platoons. There's 14 of us. You have 2 officers, a couple senior enlisted, and then 10 worker bees, let's call them, or door kickers or pipe hitters. You've heard those terms before for special forces guys. But you would have a few new guys and a few older guys. But the new guys, they needed to have the attitude of I'm here to learn, and not have an attitude of that I know it all, because they don't know it all. And then we would look to the older guys to, what does good look like, and what do we need to be doing to be better, and how can we support the platoon better. And so it's just more of that mentality. I don't know, there's definitely accountability. If we were late for a platoon meeting, the next day we would have to muster 10 minutes earlier. And so even if it was one guy, so the whole team suffered for the actions of the one. And so that's kind of how our platoons would handle it. So there could be muster times, which is like meeting in the morning. We would start at 7:30. Well, if somebody was late, they'd say, tomorrow we got to be here at 7:20. Next thing you know, we're coming in a half an hour early because. But what that does, it puts pressure on us to police our own. So what should I do? Well, I need to call so-and-so because he's struggling to get here on time. And so I got to go help my teammate figure this out so that we all keep suffering. And so we would all have to figure out how we're going to solve this together. How we're going to help him get here on time.
We do leadership training every Tuesday morning, and we're doing right now Lencioni's 5 dysfunctions of a team, and kind of talking about how do we gain commitment from those that we lead. And I think it's just what you said, it is the willingness to understand, how can I help you? It's not, well, I've already told you this. I would imagine in the SEALs, if they're like, well, we told you to be here at 7:30, like, well, no, like, do I need to call you? Do we need to, let's show up 10 minutes early so we know we're on time, type thing?
Yes. That's 100% true, because you never wanted to be an IGN, which was I got mine. So it's great that you're there all the time and your teammates aren't, but you should get up in the morning and call them and say, are you up? You're going to be there on time? So that's you reaching out and being a team player, not look at me. I'm here. Where's everybody else? Like, promote me, or look how good I am. You want the team to succeed. So I need to call and check on my teammate, things like that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. What one of the things, I was doing a little bit of research and saw that you had coached some track and field, maybe still do, and had coached your kids and stuff like that. You just said, which is incredibly amazing to me, that you went to SEAL training the first time at 18 years old. I think we can probably all remember when we were 18. I was probably not ready for that adventure. So kudos to you. What were some of those things that you may have taken from your time in the SEALs that you tried to, obviously a little bit less of a commitment here, we're running high school track. What were some of those lessons that you tried to instill to those kids when you were coaching them?
Yeah, so I coach pole vault. So, I mean, obviously I was around the track team, around the other events and things like that. So, for me, I'm more of I want people to be there because they want to be there. So I think, I'm not really hardcore on some of the other things other coaches are, but if they're there and they're willing to learn, then I'm willing to give you the time. To coach you. And so the things that I would, again, it goes back to mindset. So when somebody was struggling or thinking about this or worried about this, one of my sayings is get your mind right. And so what that is you can start to spiral quickly with, I don't think I'm ready. I don't think I'm good enough. And you just get in your own head, and it's as simple as, reset your mind, calm down. You've trained, show up and do your best and forget the rest.
Yeah, no, that makes a a whole lot of sense. I think that, as I've done research and tried to learn as much as I can about kind of mindset, it is the stories that we tell ourselves that often direct us off course, because we're constantly, second guessing. I was reading a book about like the amount of thoughts and conversations that we have with ourselves on a daily basis is mind-blowing. And a lot of those aren't super positive. It's not, I am great, I'm going to kill it. It's, well, what about this? What do you think people are going to think? Well, what am I supposed to do here? I don't look stupid. Like all of these things that are rattling around in our head, and we've got to be able to address those, but then move forward through that. Like the ability to kind of going back to kind of the training here, because we've all seen all the movies and all of this and how accurate it is. I have no idea, but it doesn't look fun. What was that, or I guess looking back on that, like obviously you learned from, hey, my dad told me to do this, I did it, it worked, great, I learned that. What were some of the other things that you learned going through that experience?
I mean, you learn a lot about yourself when you're put through that training, that physical challenge, and just it kind of and for me, I think I've kind of looked at it in a way. Every young man is looking for a way to prove themselves. Am I good enough? And things like that. So I always say, when I earned my Trident, which is the SEAL team insignia that we wear, that validated me as a young man, and so I had nothing left to prove to anyone. Like I put a piece about who I am and what I'm able to achieve, things like that. So I've talked to other people and I say, regardless, everybody has to find their own Trident, whether it's a degree or a family or a specific job, or there's something out there that will probably set that at ease for you, and you'll start to learn, I don't need to prove anything to you anymore, or you kind of have that's what happened to me, is I've got nothing left to prove to myself or anybody else at that point.
Yeah. No, I think it's a powerful kind of lesson, because I think a lot of the times we chase different things because we think that it's going to prove something to somebody, and at the end of the day, they probably don't really care.
Right.
So it's more important to prove something to yourself and know where you stand and get comfortable with who you are, as opposed to always trying to seek this outside validation.
That's right. And so for the most part, I don't ever talk about being a Navy SEAL. I don't have a SEAL logo on my truck or wear it anywhere. So for me, it was quiet. Like it just solved who I was and who I needed to prove to myself. Generally speaking, people have to tell somebody that I was a SEAL and start the conversation. That's just how I view it. It's kind of just something I did for me and to serve others. And it wasn't, look at here, look what I did.
Yeah. Would you say that that's maybe I mean, I would assume that not every SEAL is like that. There's probably some that are like, yeah, look at me. But would you say that in your times with them, that the majority of them are somewhat like that?
Yeah. So in the 90s, for sure, early 90s, and probably prior to that, it was, they were known for being silent professionals. And so that's just kind of was the motto, I think. And things have changed, society has changed. We have, the internet and, cell phones and social media and things like that. So there's nothing wrong with that either. I think there's a lot of good that comes out of them.
Yeah.
There's also some people that are probably doing it for the wrong reasons too. And
yeah,
it's not real helpful, but it's like anything, even the SEAL teams, we don't have all of the riffraff cleaned out of our platoon rooms.
Yeah.
So there's some people that come through the cracks, but for the most part, people always ask me, what do you miss the Navy? And my answer has always been resoundingly, I miss the men that I served with.
Yeah. Now, do you still interact with a lot of those guys that you served with?
I have my roommate from SEAL training. I still connected with him, but what you have to realize is I got out in 2002, so I don't even think I had a cell phone. So there was no
no means of communication
and things like that. So things have kind of, I mean, I've found a few people since then, because you can, I'm not big on social media. So, but I do have I've connected with probably a handful for sure. But there's one, my roommate, he was a little bit older. He was from Northern California. He and I still talk to this day.
Yeah, that's awesome. I would imagine that bond is pretty darn strong.
Yes.
Having gone through that, and obviously you're not getting a lot of time to sleep, so roommate is somewhat hypothetical, I guess. Like, well, yeah, I mean, they gave us a room, but we were never there.
Yeah.
No, that's interesting. I guess let's maybe shift to kind of the business world. So, as we talked and you explained, you took over your grandfather's cabinet making company. And we talked a little bit about kind of the ins and outs of that. Obviously I've taken over for my dad. So kind of family business stuff. Like what was kind of your mindset going into that particular opportunity?
Yeah. So obviously I left the Navy and came back to look at the small business of the custom cabinet world. My grandfather had the shop at his house, in a basement type operation there on Goler Boulevard. And my cousin was there. And so my mindset was I just needed to be open to it. I needed to find something that was going to work for me and my family. I had a young wife, and I had a 1-year-old at the time when we left the Navy and moved back here. And that was my new team, right? That's what can I do to take care of my family and provide for my family. And I looked at this opportunity, so I'm going to give it my best and with an open mind and see if it works, So it was just to try it out for 6 months and to see if it was something that would work for me and it would work for my cousin and my grandfather. And so I think after 6 months, I thought I was going to give it a shot. I had some other opportunities, I was coming out of the SEAL teams that for other careers, but I obviously gave that the first look, and it worked out. It wasn't easy by any means, the transition.
Yeah. So you're saying the transition from out of the Navy and doing that to just a little bit slower pace of life.
That's right. And so for me, it was definitely slower because I think when you're in the SEAL teams and you're doing all that stuff that you do, you just think it's normal because your teammates are doing it, and it's just the family you're in. We all do it. But when I'd come home on vacation and talk about what I was doing, people's jaw would drop, and you're just like, well, isn't it just what everybody does?
Yeah.
So I think, and then you transition to the civilian side, and SEALs were looked at pretty highly in the military, and you had status, and you were special, and so that was kind of cool. But when you come out, you're just a regular dude.
Yeah.
Looking to put food on the table. So that was maybe the mindset.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of shift there. So then you got to work through the family stuff and how's this business going to operate, and what do we do next? And
was that a major shift? So I may be mischaracterizing this, and tell me if I am, but like it seems like in the military it's very like, hey, my officer told me to do this, and everybody falls in line and does their stuff. Obviously in a business, not always like that. In a family business, definitely not always like that. Was that a hard adjustment, or am I mischaracterizing kind of the military's kind of chain of command? Do as you're told. This is what the orders are.
That's definitely the military for sure.
Yeah.
I think the SEAL teams are a little bit more obviously that's going to be the end game, but there's more, talk amongst everybody how we're going to do things, and they take input from down below and weigh it all. But definitely there's, at the end of the day, the buck stops with the officer in charge, your OIC. Yeah, for sure. And then if the chief says something and you're below him, you're going to do what he says.
Yeah. Now, was that different? Was that a tough adjustment into a family business where I'm sure your grandfather had his way or you told me he had his way of doing things, and this is the way we do it, and this is our
always
standard, and then you come in, young, fresh mind, like, we're gonna do this and do that. Was that difficult to navigate?
For sure, there's definitely different hard things to navigate there, because the military is not the civilian world, and then young energetic people come in with new ideas, and the old ideas don't want to die easy, maybe. Or sometimes they're just miscommunication. You think that the old person doesn't want to change, and maybe you're afraid to share that idea that you have, or because you feel like maybe they were not going to listen to you or think it's a good idea. So so I think there's some of that too, and that's just miscommunication.
For
I think
sure.
communication's everything.
Yeah, absolutely. When we were walking around, you told me about a time, and I think most can relate to this within business. There comes a time when you have to make a big pivot or a big decision, and this is the way we're going, and I'm not really sure if this is the right answer. And you spoke about, kind of switching to some automation within the cabinet making and different things like that. Like, take me through how you kind of prepped yourself for that kind of big pivot of going from, hey, we make everything by hand, it's truly custom, to, hey, we're going to have to automate some stuff or else we may die type of
Correct.
thing.
Yeah, we did talk about that when we were walking around, and I think that was a big moment for me. But I think the what I had taken the business over and I had moved it to Jonesville, Indiana. So the first time it had been out from underneath Granddad's home, and we were still doing the same thing down there, but we had more overhead, things like that. And so I feel like I had a younger family, so not only did I have the 1 year, I had a 1 year old now. I probably we had 4 kids in 5 years, so I had a lot of family to take care of.
Yeah.
And I had moved this business, and I had jumped from the Navy, and I'm down there trying to make this thing work. And I just realized that we're not really profitable doing the same thing. I was like, this is the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. And so I knew about CNC and I knew about automation, and I thought, well, this could help us possibly, but it was a big leap. You're talking about big investment financially, and they wanted that investment back in 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember talking to my wife, and I just said, I'm going to put all of our good credit on the line, and I'm going to make this big change, and it's either going to work or it isn't, but at least we're going to go down with a fight.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember signing the papers and almost threw up, and away we went. And literally, I brought that machine in, and I thought it was just going to do this for me, but it turned out to do way more, and it was the best decision that I had made. But it's hard to tell a small business owner, you need to do this. You need to go spend a whole lot more money to make more money. And I could see why it's hard to sell that machine to a small shop.
Yeah, no, that makes a whole lot of sense. And like I said, I think that's probably something people in business or really in life, there's those moments when you're tested of how much do I really believe in myself? Do you feel like there was some of that, like, all right, I've done this, I can figure this out type of thing, or is there still a little bit of anxiety around that?
Definitely anxiety. And I think, I looked at the customer base, and it was all, there was no marketing. It was all word of mouth. It was builders, designers, everybody that knew all the relationship my grandfather had built, and they knew it one way. And here I was gonna change things, in a dramatic way, the construction method. And so I stressed that, like, this could, everybody, the end user may say they're not the same anymore. We're out of here.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a huge fear. It was like, this change is a big direction change from where we were, and not making everything in house. And I slowly changed that, but I definitely had doubts, but at the same time, that the tenacity to go through SEAL training helped me say, I knew this wasn't going to work if I stayed the course. I had to make a change, and I'm willing to make this change and go all in. So there was nights I worked 24 hours.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I could do that, but
yes,
kept fighting.
Yeah. No, that's
Didn't
interesting.
go down easy. So.
Yeah. Well, congrats to you. That's fantastic. And I think a true lesson of perseverance and resiliency in the face of, some uncertainty, which is, I think what we all face, on a daily basis. One of the questions I want to ask you, because I thought this was so interesting, is you have 3 of your children are at the Naval Academy right now. What do you think inspired them? I mean, and maybe they've told you, maybe they haven't, but like, what do you think inspired them to want to go that path?
It shocked me because, everybody thinks, oh, your dad was a Navy SEAL. I mean, he probably ran the house with an iron fist, and I'm just the opposite. I'm very...
You don't come off like that.
Yeah. We didn't talk about Navy a lot. I mean, I think they knew that I was in the Navy, but it wasn't like, all this. My dad served in Vietnam and was an A6 intruder pilot. So I always heard those stories growing up. So my kids heard those stories at Thanksgiving and Christmas. And and they also knew that I had served. But it wasn't this big push. We didn't talk about the Naval Academy. We didn't talk about, our kids were runners, and we thought they would go to college and, figure it out. But the Navy reached out to my son,
Okay.
the coach there. And so that was the first inclination that we had, that the Navy got brought up, the Naval Academy. And then they started asking me, what is it? And I said, some of the greatest men I know came from the United States Naval Academy that served as SEALs in my platoon. And so I said, I've always been in awe of what the Naval Academy produces. And so that's just what I shared with them from my experience. Some of the best men that I know are from the Naval Academy that were my leaders. And so my son said, I'm not going there. Then a year passes by, and they asked him to come out for a cross-country camp. He went there. By the time we left that camp, that 3 or 4 days, he said, this is where I want to go. So he went. Then my daughter right below him, Brianna, she's 11 months younger than Matthew. So we had Irish twins.
Okay.
She told us that she wanted to go there because she fell in love with it. And like, wow. And then our youngest said, there's no way I'm going there. And then recently, she got talked into going to summer seminar, and she went there, and it kind of inspired her when she went there and heard some stories from some speakers they had. And she said, if not me, then who, Dad?
Yeah.
So then that was her. So it was it just blew me and my wife away that, we're very honored. And so I'm not quite sure how it happened, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think sometimes the best things kind of happen organically, and it sounds like that's kind of how it did. Like, hey, I didn't just follow my dad's footsteps because he told me to do this, and that's what I needed to do. It was kind of this organic, understanding of like, oh, okay, now I'm putting everything together, which I'm guessing will be a really great story that will continue to live on in your family for sure. But no, that's really cool, and I think also just a representation of like, I think hearing those stories or understanding that and then being able to relate it back to like, oh, well, yeah, I'd like to be someone like my dad or my grandpa or something like that, which, I think is something that I think about a lot. Obviously, taking over a family business, and it's like, oh, okay, well, like, I don't make decisions. There's a lot of stuff that me and my dad are not alike on, for sure. But there's still this piece of like, wanting to make them proud, and hey, look what I'm doing, and you had a part in this and all of this stuff. So I think that that's a really neat thing. So congrats to you and your family for sure. I guess as we kind of wrap up here, and really appreciate the time, first and foremost, what do you feel like, this is a podcast about leadership and hopefully developing leaders and giving them information. I guess what's the one thing, I mean, we know what your dad would say about leadership. We figured that one out. Great advice. I think I'm going to write that down and put that on a wall somewhere. That's fantastic. What would you say, like, if you were to, share a leadership lesson that, just in life in general, it doesn't have to be from, your time in the SEALs or whatever, like, what's that one thing that you have kind of gravitated towards from a leadership perspective that you would share?
I think it's probably just the opposite of what people think a leader is do as I say, I'm the boss. That wouldn't be me at all. It would be from a bottom-up leadership technique, is what I call it, which is like, what do you need from me? How can I support you? How can I make things better? What can we do different? Do you have any good ideas? But to reach out to, because I always tell people we're nothing without our employees. So that's just kind of how I value them, because I can't make all the products myself, and I need their support. So it was like, how can I empower you to do your job better? So that's how I would use my leadership, or think that leadership is like, I have the ability. Do you have ideas that would help your job be easier? Do you have, you're out here doing it day to day. So is there something you need that I can provide that will help you do your job better? I think that would be, just bottom up leadership, I call it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And same thing at home, is what can I do to help the family out?
For sure. Yeah. And it's, I was telling our team this morning, I was like, once you start like learning about leadership and you start just, it's not like you're going to read a book and be an expert tomorrow. It's all about consistency. And it's so funny that you just said that, because we were actually talking about that this morning, and it was all about how do we gain commitment from those that we lead. And the biggest piece of that is, it's not so much like you can still be the one of like, hey, this is what we're going to do, but it's allowing those that you lead to be heard.
Correct.
And this is what I'm thinking. Do you have any input? Again, to your point, we talk about it all the time. Here, we make a lot of policy and procedure from this building that's air conditioned and, has heat in the winter. But yet our team is out there in the not so nice conditions doing the hard work. And so to not get their input is not the best way to make a decision in my mind. It's like, we need to get your input. Yeah, I may write out the process and procedure, but at the same time, I need to get, what you think, or this is what I'm thinking. Does that work for you? Well, that's never going to work out here. Oh, well, that's good to know. I'm glad we didn't spend the time to vet that even further. So I think all great leadership lessons that we can take away from today, whether it's mindset, whether it's the commitment, the understanding of that we're here to take care of others over ourselves, and that we'll get taken care of if we take care of others in the end. So, Dan, I really appreciate the time. This has been awesome. And again, as I said at the beginning, thank you for your service. I think listeners, if you can't take anything out of this, listen to it again, because there's plenty of good stuff in here that you can take back, hopefully, to your teams and hopefully make an impact. Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to connect with me personally, you can find me at chadmpeterman.com. To see what our team's up to, you can visit petermanbros.com. Don't forget to check out the YouTube channel and consider joining the CSTG Arena. As always, keep growing out there.